Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tattoos with Intention podcast, where we unpack the tattoo paradigm. I'm your host, Mark Nara, and I feel like giving myself a welcome back because it has been 1 year since I've uploaded a podcast. So yeah, enough about the break. Life just got in the way, that's okay, but we're back on, and to kick it off, I'm going to put up 2 episodes back to back with an absolute legend, Jon Osiris, who's based in Seattle, Washington. And Jon originally contacted me about 12 months ago via email. A friend put him onto the podcast, and he was absolutely chuffed to be listening to someone else who was tapping into the potential of this craft that we both participate in. And so he reached out, and we had our initial chat. And that's what you're going to listen to here on part 1 of this conversation. Obviously, since you haven't heard this yet, about 6 months passed after that chat. A few more pieces of the conversation had fallen into place, so to speak, in my mind. I reached out to Jon again and said I'd like to have a deeper discussion and to go into some more of the different elements that we brought up initially. So we did. We had another hour-long chat, and so that's going to be part 2. So I hope you really enjoy these long-awaited episodes. Big thank you to Jon for your patience. Like I said, you're an absolute legend. I really appreciate the time and openness that you have put in already, and I'm sure there's going to be part 3 because I really enjoyed chatting with Jon, and I feel like he enjoyed the conversation as well. And we have been in touch over this past 12-month dark period of the podcast, and I know we're both working on some very interesting things, so I'm sure there's been development on that front that we can chat about and unpack. But here's an introduction for Jon and who you're going to be listening to. So Jon Osiris's practices of intentional and ceremonial tattooing, he has coined tattoo vinyasa and dermal Darshan. And these 2 practices have evolved out of his background in Eastern mysticism, yoga, and tantra, which, as you will hear, he is very adept in. Also informing his fluid and multifaceted approach are associations with North American native people and their practices from the North Pacific coast, the Apache and Lakota Nations. So me and Jon draw a lot of parallels in terms of our inspirations and our practices. Like I said, he's a good man. You'll get a lot out of his conversation, and there are a lot of different avenues and paths that he opens up for you to look into. He will repeat it at the end of our interview, but you can see his work on Instagram at Jon108Osiris and at tattoo_vinyasa, as well as on the web at www.tattoovinyasa.com. And you can reach him via his email at jon@thesacredserpent.com. And like I said, he's based in Seattle, Washington, USA. I'll put all of this up in the show notes underneath. But I hope you enjoy it. And if you enjoy part 1, which I'm sure you will, keep an eye out for part 2. Like I said, I'll put them up back to back. Sorry for the delay. And thank you to everyone who has listened to the previous episodes, and I hope you enjoy these new ones. And there's a lot on the plate for this year, so just stay tuned and I'll keep you informed. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy it. Awesome. Well, thanks for contacting me, man, and making that connection, saying you wanted to sort of share what it is that you do.
Yeah, well, it seemed like you had a cool idea and way about yourself. So I thought to reach out and see what may come, and you have a little forum here and invited me to participate. So that's cool. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. You're welcome. I mean, for me, this is just a platform to be having these discussions, you know. So when I had a look at what you were doing, and it was vastly different in many ways from what I was doing, but I could see you've obviously put a lot of time and energy into developing what it is you do. I definitely thought it was worth having a chat and exploring it. So here we are. So I thought with this chat we'd get straight into it because I'm sure there's a lot to cover and get through and understand.
Certainly.
So you sent me an email just saying, you know, that you're at this point where you're ready to introduce the framework of the intentional tattoo model you've been developing to the world, and that system. And it's tattoo vinyasa. Is that right?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. I mean, my only background understanding of vinyasa is vinyasa flow yoga. There's a lot of that happening
Indeed.
in Australia. So, I mean, yeah, just tell us about it. What it is that you're doing.
Cool. Well, of course, vinyasa gets certainly people thinking about yoga in some form. Of course, yoga asana tends to be what people go to because now it's such a worldwide phenomenon. Um, of course, yoga goes beyond physical postures and so forth. And I have, of course, been working in a multifaceted, but primarily yogic and tantric background for the last 15 years. Um, and that's been my personal practice.
Yeah, yeah,
And but I really got there because of tattooing, because tattooing opened up a lot of different channels for me, and the two sort of ideas or practices sort of fused together um, over time,
yeah,
over many
yeah,
years. Um, I've been tattooing professionally for about 12 years. Some years before that, experimentation. Um, it's always kind of a
yeah. So
experiment, really.
it's been a long tattoo road and a spiritual path as well. So, like your yogic
Right.
and tantric practices, are they are you actually doing yoga like physical form yoga, or because yoga is like just a spiritual discipline or path, right? For like finding
Yeah,
harmony and
certainly. The meaning is, of course, like tends to construe union or yoking energies together.
yeah.
So, of course, if we're doing that with physical postures, where it comes into vinyasa is the V prefix is a special. It signifies something special or notable, um, or um, or different. And yasa is the act of placement or to place. And Nyasa is actually a tantric practice where you place energies on the body with mantras, empowered by mantras, and so
All
on.
right.
So it was this kind of, this realization that, this is really what we're doing with tattoos. We're doing Nyasa. If we're doing it with some kind of intention, and I love what you calling your podcast tattoos with intention. Um, it's, it's kind of like the path that find myself upon.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, it certainly didn't start out that way, but over time, things have just like, yeah, just these things connect.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, same with me with tattooing. It definitely didn't start that way at all. But so Yasa. So excuse my like my low knowledge base on the yogic thing.
So
That's why I'm so interested in talking to you.
stop me anywhere you want. Ask
Yeah,
your question. I'm happy
yeah,
to
yeah.
oblige.
So you're saying with Yasa in the tantric sense is placing like energies onto particular parts of the body through
Correct.
mantra. So like say focusing on a spot and saying particular things, or is that right?
Certainly, that can be involved. Traditionally, mantras are involved in Nyasa, Nyasa, and so yeah, like as a natural sort of occurrence, tattooing is that, and tattooing is like a magic thing. We're creating change by the will, um, in a very real way, and so
Yeah.
um, it's it's like
I
You
guess it's
certainly
like
don't have you
Sakyan.
don't have to use mantras, but yes, it's the same idea as Sakyan.
Yeah,
I mean
yeah,
that's I've traveled all over, and Thailand's been one of my favorite places, and um, that's kind of where I really connected in a way of like, man, these people are still doing like a ritual, like this is
yeah,
still part of a spiritual culture there. So
yeah. So
super inspiring.
did Sakyan sort of shape your practice in a way? Like, what's the differences with the Sakyan and what you're doing if they're both doing that same sort of mantra overlay with the tattooing?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes from a similar place and branches on the same tree as, there were no tantric tattooers, like yogic practitioners really that I had an experience with. This is like kind of just something that has been coming coming down in my realm and being able to be like, oh, well, I can draw some parallels here with how things are set up. Sakya tends, in my experience with it and observation and study of it, um, it's sacred formula, mantras, to invoke talismanic or amuletic features about the tattoos. And I really liked what you were saying. I listened to some of your other interviews and material, form with Piat Shot there. And you
Yeah,
guys were talking about um, how you were using governing points with your tattoos and putting those in by hand. And it's interesting. I thought it was great because like, dude, I'm doing the same thing,
yeah,
but
right.
with I just call them a different thing. I call them bindu, and this bindu traditionally a yantra, which is what yan part of Sakya comes from. There'll be the upara, the outline around the boundary line around the main image, and then you have the lotus petals, and then you have some geometrical image in the
In the
middle,
middle. Yeah.
and then in the very center you have that one dot, that one still point. That's the bindu. So
Hmm.
um, it's the same type of idea as a governing point. Like that's like sort of
That's
where
that central
the
energetic point.
Mhm.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because
the
like yantra means like mystical drawing or diagram, right?
and machine, something that holds energy.
Yeah, yeah, that's
It's
right.
like
Yeah, instrument. That's the other translation, isn't
mhm,
it? Like an instrument, which is like
exactly
so informative when you think about it being more than a picture, right? It's like, okay,
right.
yeah, there's a lot more
There's
happening
something
there.
else going on.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah, and that's exactly how I use those governing points. Um, but it's interesting. So there's usually just one with Sakyant. It's just the Bindu in the center.
Well, of course, like it seems in that tradition, a lot of people they're getting a lot of different tattoos, right? It's like
Yeah.
they're like I've seen the dude like some of these guys with bodysuits of of all of that stuff. Man, it's amazing to see. Um, there are some people I hung out with and talked with that I couldn't photograph. They asked me not to photograph them, but I just hanging out with them and sort of speaking some rudimentary Thai and basic English. It's cool to see like understand some of the material. Um, but
Yeah. I guess they like almost grid their body with all those different diagrams, right?
and they
Especially on
have
a bodysuit.
layouts
Yeah.
like a shirt, like so it's like you're putting on a piece of armor or something. This idea that like this can be somehow empowering and give us a little bit more protective energy
Yeah.
or explosive or some kind. We're going to do something with this thing. It's going to protect us or guard us
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
we go through our life. Whether they and their intentions can be very particular about what it is. So you've got something for like this criminal who gets one because he doesn't want to get shot.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
know,
I
there's
love
there's all
how
kinds of
particular they are. I think it's great,
mhm.
man, because they're just like, they're straight up about it. It's like, this is so that I don't get shot, like you said, and it, that does like resonate with me a little bit. Like I get some guys that come in and they literally want some type of protective armor as well because of whatever they do. They might be like a martial artist or in the military or things like that. And I always think about this one interview that I heard with Lars Krutak, where he talks about going into Borneo and talking to one of the last old tattooists there. And he would talk about when Japan sort of invaded, and it was like back in war times, and no one that he'd tattooed got any bullets through, and they were just kind of running through these, all of this onslaught. It was
Excellent.
just like, wow, proper magic back in the day. Yeah, nice.
Well,
And
a lot of it seems to hinge upon belief as well. In my experience in study, it's like, sometimes it's said that it's been said, it wasn't me, but um, belief is the death of reason. Of course, we can shut our minds down, but also when you invoke something so strongly and you have multiple parties kind of in on this thing, because tattooing it is that, unless you're tattooing yourself, which can be done. But I prefer the, receiving. It's a very
yeah,
sacred relationship because you have to let go of everything, and your body is on the care of someone else who's going to do, marking it as you have agreed, and you've um, made some exchange, appropriate exchange, and it's a very cool thing.
oh,
It's always
completely.
been sort of magically. It's always had that inclination and perspective for me.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's like its origins with most cultures too, right? It's not
Mm.
people tattooing themselves. It's very much going into that exchange with someone, this like giving and receiving. And even though they're like opposite sides of the circuitry, they're both equal as well. It's not like the artist is giving something of theirs to that person. It's more them getting on the same page and
Mm.
cultivating something because they both
Mm.
believe in it, right?
Right.
And that
And
idea
it's
of
an opportunity. It's an
oh,
opportunity to to go deep into this thing and to really concretize something and make it real. And all I discuss in my curriculum and in my in tattoo vinyasa, uh, what empowerment of the will and what part that plays in tantra, tattoo vinyasa as this practice goes.
yeah, well,
So
let's talk about the will. That's something that's been coming up for me a little bit. And so
mm,
like empowerment of the will, that's kind of like our creative force, isn't it? Like to sort of take some control around what we're creating and
no, indeed,
manifesting.
indeed, it's. I think it's an event, because and it's worth taking the taking the time to practice something to put you there. And I think tattooing really does that
Mm.
for those of us, because over the last 5 years of pretty wide travel, I've encountered a lot of people such as yourself, where it's like, wow, this guy kind of gets it, or this gal like really is figuring something out with, you know, you can move into a lot of different areas with this tool. And so, yeah, I mean, my experience and my way is to like really go for it. But but the will, of course, is defined as being both a verb and a noun. But like, so I will tattoo you, but
Mhm.
that's not the same as someone's uh, someone's claiming one's rights or empowering or emancipating oneself, kind of setting one free to do whatever it is and intend whatever it is that they want.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, totally. I mean,
yeah,
I think about will with people, and when I explain, I'm just like, there's that, a lot of people fall into that, like go with the flow mentality, especially
mhm,
where when they're on a path of like making some change and, transformations happening. You got to go with the flow, right? But then I say there's a
mhm,
point where it's like you've actually got to take charge too to
mhm,
effectively make the change that you want to do. And it's not till you're engaging your will and deciding, okay, in this change, this is the direction I want to go. And it starts to actually materialize that, that supreme sort of force that's watching and guiding and governing and giving us life will be like, okay, you're using your will now to create something that's worthwhile for yourself. So I'm going to start, injecting you with more and sort of getting behind you and putting wind in your sails. If you go with the flow, things can change, but you can end up anywhere and all over the place. And there's lessons in that, but the wheel's kind of really, taking the wheel. And you're right. I think tattooing's like a massive part of that, because there's a lot of accountability behind tattooing. You got to like own and wear the decisions that you're making, right?
That's right. My friend, Freddie Corbin said, he's like, you get what you get. And he told me this funny story.
Yeah.
About somebody who was like, hey, not so stoked about this. But it's like, hey, but that's what you got, and however it worked out, like, is, that it's, written in the moment. It's like that moment in time. So, I feel like, it pays to do your homework and to really get down to specifics about things. And then you can let go when you're, when you're sure you've communicated. And so you've got someone who's definitely listening, and, you're all on the same page. Then it's very easy to let go into the experience. But you've done your homework, and said you're putting all your energy kind of toward this thing. I feel like, my different practices sort of informing various levels of each other. It really is how, energy follows intention.
Oh, completely.
And
yeah.
So
you got to, I love that you've said that. Yeah, I love that you've brought up like doing your homework and understanding each other, because it's super important. That's been highlighted to me in the past couple of weeks too. Just how easy it is to not pay attention in the moment. And then, with tattooing, it happens. The tattoo happens. And then after, you're just like, where was the point that we weren't present enough with each other to really get on the same page, because it can be the slightest thing with a tattoo, and then it's there. It's important to do that homework.
Well, and then of course, as someone who's practicing this craft too, you gotta know when to sort of assert your expertise about things without, it can be very touchy-feely.
Yeah.
Emotionally with people. And so it's like, you can feel things sort of like going a different direction with someone. You got to check in with them and say, hey, are we still good with this?
Oh,
so,
completely. Yeah.
People sometimes, they have all different ways of coping with whatever it is and whatever is connected to this image that they've decided to imprint. And I've seen it get a little squirrely, or people just disassociate, or, whatever. But I feel like I'm just there for people with wherever they're at.
Yeah.
But I have kind of a few levels or grades of the way working with people, because not everybody wants the same thing. So, kind of going into different strata as you go deeper, can be very simple and friendly and sociable, but it can also be, it's like, oh, okay, we're going to stop time right here and like make this happen. So,
you need sort of different layers to it for sure. I mean, I really respect that too, that you're, if I'm hearing it correctly, you have time for whatever people come to you and want to get tattooed, and you want to understand it. And a lot of the time and I don't think a lot of people getting tattoos understand this as much as a tattooist does, that is trying to be there for people. There's a whole lot of work that goes in before the tattoo goes on the skin, helping that person understand all of the different things that they want to mark and how to do it in the best way, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I started a back this week, and the woman that came in, she's lovely, but she had, the past maybe 10 years worth of life events on one piece of paper, all drawn out and mapped out. It's one of those ones. It literally looked like
Yeah.
a bird's eye view map, and they all had like a lot of value to her. And I just had to sort of start to systematically break it up and say, well, we can group all this together into this image, and that do that work. And
Yeah.
actually, I had Piot in the studio with me that day, and he was like, "Oh, this is why I don't do these type of tattoos anymore." And I was kind of like, "Bro, like this is the work. This is you got to be
Yeah.
doing this. This is the stuff that it's about." And he got it by the end of that day because he saw it play out, which is good. But yeah,
Cool.
tell us a little bit like more extended around what your framework is that you use, because you've said there's a bit of a curriculum and some different levels to what you do. So maybe just like a basic tattoo vinyasa framework that someone would experience when they come to you.
Great. Yeah, I think so. Kind of the basic level of things um, with clients and the way I work tends to be like, this is sort of engaging with the natural magic of the tattoo. And if magic is, by empowerment or empowered will, we're creating a change. That's a tattoo, plain and simple. Um, so other than doing some kind of basic clearing, um, and sort of attending to the needs of the client, attending to my tools, and my when I'm in my studio, in the altar and so forth, giving people a chance to just like drop into the present moment, acknowledge that we're shifting gears from mundane to something a little different, and that's it. Um, uh, Kind of the second level would be that it's that the tattoo is given shakti or medicine, depending on how you relate to energy. Those are different things, but similar. Um, and this kind of inviting deeper investigation into the client's association with the image, intended purpose, opening the door to philosophical and metaphysical strata in and around the experience. So it can be simple, it can be elaborate.
Well,
It may entail some meditation or contemplation as we install the image. Um, and that's that. So allowing or asking them to like, it's their choice, but we're agreeing in this choice, and I'm kind of guiding them into a little deeper connection with their own personal mythology as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, mythology is something I'd like to touch on as well. But in that framework, just so you said you start with some like basic clearing. What's the method of like clearing that you use? And is it on the same page as say like smudging that some people would do?
yeah, it is probably just that. Because I've got a couple of different backgrounds. I work with the Lakota people and do ceremonies with them as well. So that's kind of how that comes into things. It's a nice practice. An interesting thing relating to the yogic side, however, is the inhalation or the sense of smell is grounding. It relates to the earth element. And so it grounds us if we have some olfactory, some wafting some smoke around.
Yeah.
Aromatics tend to do that. So like even if you can't burn smoke or burn some sage or some palo santo or something, you can use a little bit of oil or just have a little bit of scent of something, and that will put you in your body more and ground you into the experience more.
Yeah, totally. I think it's super important, and like before and after too, right? Because it's like it's just energy management of your space. Right.
For sure.
Yeah, and then you said shakti. So shakti, I don't know what the meaning of the word is, but you're saying it's like bringing the medicine in. So yeah,
So
how's that work with you?
Shakti is the um, manifest or phenomenal energy of life itself. It relates to being female. It relates to being like power also, and it relates to kind of a rarefied experience or manifestation. So um, it relates to the goddess, or a Shakta is someone who works with Shakti, and tends to be the ultimate uh, balance point of that. So without Shakti, without the 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 energetic universe turning around Shiva, he has no power at all. So it's only by this dualistic relationship that we come into being, really. So I think, well, my tradition is a Shakta lineage, Shaivite in sort of coloration. But we, we, the stream of cultivation and the lineage that that is what is really passed on at its core is um, this energetic um, stream that is available.
Yeah.
So there's some empowerment with that in terms of you being able to. It's similar to bringing in medicine as far as relationship with the native ways and so on. So that's kind of how I was kind of helping people understand what it is.
Yeah, yeah. So you're like, so you've obviously got this background, quite a highly developed background in the yogic and tantric systems, which they're already like a complete system, right? Like it's a complete system without the tattooing, but because you're coming into it as a tattooist, this system's informing your tattooing now.
Indeed.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I can see it now. Yeah. Cool. And so, I mean, like I like that you're incorporating the two, but was there a point prior to it where, you're tattooing and you got your yoga and they're sort of just separate parts of your life, and you were still doing this work, tattooing, without having the system umbrellaing it and the labels to it?
Right. Yeah. So in my life, it started out because I was very introspective, sensitive kind of person.
Yeah.
But um, so there was a lot of baggage I was carrying around, that stuff that who knows how you cope with stuff when you're young, you're a teenager. Things seem like the end of the world.
Yeah.
It also seems like you can do anything you want. But for me, the thing kind of became clear as I was getting tattooed early on, that there was some kind of solace and peace that time gave me, that there was a time of reflection, but it was also this like this relationship that I had with my body, where I was like, I was sort of angry about a lot of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Having trouble. I grew up in like skateboarding and punk rock scene, also kind of playing sports and being on the middle between like the two worlds of like the jocks and the skaters and the punks and stuff. And so it was like, a lot of available to me there, really. But tattooing was something that really made things, it's like, well, there's some change, some feeling now that I had, like this, like I chose to do this, and I did it, and it's sort of a rite of passage. There aren't that many rites of passage for people, young people these days, that actually matter. And we're all sort of like looking for our tribe. Most of us don't grow up in like a solid situation as far as like a community. So
completely.
I think it really brought a lot of that stuff up to the level, and saying like, here's some ways to kind of get through this, and taking hold of things. Of course, my expressions at that point were ultimately what I saw as being what I wanted later. So that's like, again, why I'm interested in educating people and encouraging people to take time to study
Yeah.
whatever they're doing with tattoos. But, cause I got everything covered up, like I had
Yeah, I'm
a
covering a
bunch of
lot of stuff
tattoos
too,
that,
man. Yeah. Covering up part of my
yeah,
leg, lots of younger parts of myself that will come through. Yeah.
yeah. But it was just this idea that we could go into this kind of this ritual that you do for yourself, and this is like taking time out. It was a spiritual practice before I even knew what that meant,
Yeah.
um, in a way.
Yeah,
So
totally. Like I'm the same. I mean, that's why I bring it up because I look in and I'm like, for me, you know, and I do love the diversity and everything that different people are doing with it. It's all good and it's all helping. But like I see that the path of tattooing's already mapped. Been having this chat with heaps of people lately, trying to work in a similar way to us. And everyone's putting a different spin on it. And I'm like, what I'm really trying to uncover those essentials to it as that rite of passage, and as that transformational tool that guides us. And yeah, I see it as like it's already there. The track's there. It's a little bit overgrown, and we just have to sort of cut back the overgrowth a little bit, you know. And so
mhm.
I'm asking myself a lot of the time, what's essential? I ended up out in the rainforest the other day, finishing a tattoo on someone, and it was awesome being out in this old rainforest and the situation and everything. And I'm sitting there going, this tattoo would be a lot more comfortable if I was in the studio, you know,
Mhm.
and I'd enjoy the rainforest more if we were just out here, maybe just doing the central points or the bindu, and closing it off with some ceremony. But it kind of blew out into this other thing because there's a lot of like non-essential stuff that people were trying to add to the tattoo experience,
Mhm.
which I think that's what we need, is just like that little boundary around tattooing already is doing all this stuff for you when you engage with it. And we're just
Mhm.
like yourself and myself, we were unconscious of it because there is no curb or, you know, path for us to follow from the get-go. And that's what we're all looking for now and trying to develop, I guess. And so that's why it's getting all these different layers on top of it, you know? Um,
Well, I think it's important too you know, because you can kind of take it and do whatever you want. I think those of us who are sort of called to this way or this path of working with this particular thing, that it's important for us to discuss and to talk about what's essential and things like that
yeah,
because,
fully.
we've all seen what the media will do with things and like, the TV shows and everything else. It's like, that changed a lot of things, uh, sure, for
Oh, yeah.
tattooing
Yeah.
that I could see in that, in a lot of ways it was disappointing. Um, but nevertheless, um, it's really up to us to like continue to take it and to make it into the vehicle that, you know, really it has been for the most of history. It's like this
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
blip is some kind of a maybe an anomaly, but um,
Yeah, totally.
the,
It's what
the
it is. It's what
ancestors
tattooing is.
the ancestors practiced it, and we are too, and we'll be ancestors one day as well. So
Yeah. Hey, yeah, I hear you,
keep it
man.
on the.
I hear you completely. Um, yeah, so I mean, like, how how's it been for you overlaying the yogic stuff with it? Have you had anything come up for yourself in terms of like cultural appropriation stuff or borrowing culture to work with it? Have you had any of that come up with people that you work with? Or is everyone
Mm.
kind of already aligned with the yogic thing and that seems to channel them in?
Well, I mean, I kind of not everybody. I get different tribes come to me. I will
Yeah.
say like different types of folks, and there's several kind of different main types, I guess I could say. But for cultural appropriation, et cetera, I mean, I'm trying to be very conscious about these things. If I didn't have some kind of um, permissions or acceptance around what I was doing, that would cause me to certainly take notice and be a little more, figuring out
Yeah,
what it
completely.
is that what is the problem. But most folks seem to connect. Um, try to be pretty straight up about everything and say like,
Yeah, yeah.
this is where this comes from, and this is part of this tradition, and this relates to that way, and I'm sort of here in the Lakota way. We talk about being the hollow bone, um,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of being that instrument that the life breath is going through,
Yeah,
and trying to get our own ego shit out of the way.
yeah.
And I think that can be very difficult, very tricky for people. I kind of, without a steady, like a daily practice of some kind, I think might be easy to to fall off in some ways. Um,
Totally,
but
totally. Yeah. So
keep on keeping
who
on.
are your teachers, so to speak, in from both those lines, like with the tantric side and with the Lakota side? I'm particularly interested in the Lakota stuff. I mean, it
Mhm.
seems like your focus is more on the yogic, maybe because it's got like more of a system there that you can translate to people. But I mean, the Native American stuff
Well,
fascinates me. Done a bit of work as well with them.
cool. Yeah, I'm growing up in this area. Um, that was kind of the first associations that I had were with the Pacific Northwest coast, native traditions, the artwork, all the stuff around here was, and really like that. It was the ancestors that spoke to me because I was out touching the land.
Yep.
I was out playing in the woods all the time, and
They see
I
you.
was
They see
I
you, man.
I was
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
there. So um, it kind of it's my association stemmed from that, and I've kind of friends with a lot of different tribes and different peoples, nations, and the Apache are one, and the Pacific Northwest coast, Haida, Tlingit, Kwagyo, all types of folks up here. Um, I have a couple artists. My friend Clinton Work, I believe he's Kwagyo. Um, really, I met him through Lakota Way, but he's an amazing artist, and also like somebody that I can ask questions about certain things, like, does this work? Like, somebody gave me this as reference, but you know, I want to know
Okay.
the
Yep.
story. So he's kind of told me like, where to go and start to look at these stories, and like, if it is connected to a story, then there's certain rules,
In
and you should
terms of
learn the rules.
like the actual symbology of patterns and stuff.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And his other admonition was that you should learn the rules before you break them. So I was like, yes, that sounds like a very good idea in general terms. Before, like, kind of like Horiyoshi 3 on his idea of shuhari, and like, you learn tradition, you stick to tradition, and then once you master tradition, then you can break with tradition in some ways because you
Yeah.
understand, like, and you're not skipping any parts. So I like that
Totally.
as well. Um, and the Lakota uh, people that I am connected with are the Ghost Horse Tioshbe, and they're they kind of come from the Pine Ridge and the Rosebud areas. There's a lot of connections there with those reservations,
What type of
and
practices do the Lakota have out? Are they doing like sweat lodge and
the
vision and
Inipi, yeah, the Inipi is
NDP? Hmm.
the main practice as far as like the most frequent.
Yeah.
There's 7 ceremonies in the Lakota way. Um, the Inipi, the Uipi, they got Lawampi. All these are like different, um, different types of ceremonies, but the song and the drum, and usually the fire. The UEPs not so much. UEPs are usually indoors in a structure in a house.
Hmm.
But most of them are healing ceremonies. Um, and sometimes they're very specific. Sometimes they are um, a little more generalized, like the three ring circus of Lakota ceremony is the sun dance.
Yeah.
4 days, 4 days of dancing. You have 4 days of purification before that. Um, so those are kind of a little bit of the background there. Um, I kind of focused, and I'm using tattoo vinyasa as my sort of formulation point, but it can be stripped down to you can get rid of the yogic nomenclature, and you can use it pretty much anywhere because there's 7 main principles in dermal darshan, which is the idea like dermal, of course, is the skin. Darshan is beholding something with your eyes. Usually it's a sacred object. So when you have darshan, through our computers, we're having darshan of one another here
Hmm.
today. But there's 7 steps that I have that you can, that I don't always use the Sanskrit terminology because it's not totally necessary.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
what are
Not
go
everybody
through the
speaks it.
steps with us? The steps without the Sanskrit terminology, if you
So
can.
yeah, the 7 steps are, the first would be purification.
Yeah.
Um, the second is sensory control. The third is breath work. The fourth is single pointed focus. Fourth, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The fifth is empowered placement or nyasa. That's the placement. Sixth is absorption. And seventh is assimilation or integration.
Ah, so important. The last, for sure. What's the sensory control? Was it second one?
Sensory control.
Yeah.
So that comes from the word pratyahara, which means to withdraw the senses inward. Um,
Okay.
it's sort of the sensory association with our flesh while it's being wounded, because we're moving into a mind over matter state.
Yeah.
We kind of pull our senses inward and try to become still so that we can receive these markings with a calm and a clear
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, mind,
Yeah.
basically. Our
And getting
mind.
people to sort of go internal a bit and connect with their body before it begins.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
cool. Yeah. Yeah, nice.
which
And
is
then
another purification is the sort of the perfunctory, even before that, going into some kind of preparation, some kind of mental communication with your body and the part that's going to receive tattoo, etc.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, have you ever thought about doing inipi as some type of purification prior to tattoo?
Um, that could be an interesting thing. I have done that around tattooing other other members of that family, of
Ah,
that
okay,
group.
yeah, yeah,
I've tattooed on bear robes and buffalo robes and um, before and after sweat
yeah,
lodges and things like that.
yeah,
Certainly.
yeah,
Um, and usually it's those people who are requesting those things. It's associated with their practice because I'm also associated with that practice and practitioner, um, or a learner, at least.
yeah,
I've been around about 8 years or so.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, I'm happy to do that with folks.
yeah, yeah. I've always thought it'd be an awesome ceremony to couple with it, especially if people are, traveling to get some work done, some tattooing work to mark something, to sort of have that that day of purification that involved some sweat, you know, and really connecting into the place and going internal. I actually asked one of my teachers, but he's Navajo, and he was just like, we misunderstood each other a little bit, and he thought I was asking if I could tattoo in the lodge, and he's going, no, you can't do that. I was like, no, just before, you know.
Yeah, that would be really difficult.
I
wouldn't want to
couldn't
do
see
that.
anything.
No,
Funny.
no, it's just not what's happening there.
Yeah, no, I think it. So, what was it that made you want to apply the yogic structure opposed to the, say, Native American structure to your tattooing? Is it just that it's like more comprehensible to some people, or?
Well, I think part of it's because like that's been my core practice for like the last 15 or so years. I've been involved directly with Native people and different traditions for even longer, but not in the Lakota way. And Lakota way has a lot more. I've been invited deeper into that, and I've made connections there for myself that have pulled deeper into that in the last, 7, 8 years or so. But it's primarily because that's where most of my experience lies, with dealing with, because in my Eastern tradition, in the International Knot Order, I help guide people along in their practice. And so it's kind of come to a point of like, well, I'm sort of being asked to share this, being asked to teach some of these things and help people prepare for potential initiation. Kind of makes sense for me to, like I didn't necessarily intend it, like I said, to go this route. Over the time, it's like those little voices that are like your higher nature kind of communicating with you in subtle ways and saying like, you're jerking your chain here, like you should look at this, and you should, here we're feeding this to you, kind of thing. So related to also like, there's so many, yoga has gone so wide, and there's a lot of different ideas about it. And I think a lot of people are getting away from what it's really about, because it's like, oh, if I can fit my leg over my head, then I must be enlightened. It's like, well, it's not really the way it works. It's there to help you remain solute in your physical body while you work on more subtle levels. So that's sort of a little about the background on that.
Yeah. No, I can see why you've gone that way, seeing it's your kind of primary path that you've been studying and working with. Makes sense. And so you kind of, is the tattooing using the tattoo vinyasa, like a precursor to some of the yogic knowledge then? Because you were saying it's like in preparation, possibly for initiation.
Yes. So some of what I'm sharing vis-a-vis the tattoo vinyasa and dermal darshan is connected with ritual and ceremony in that tradition.
Okay.
And so some mantras are given. And I did a tour this past fall. Went to several places around the States, and I did a couple of these workshops, and I presented my material in one day, and I kind of bookended it with some ceremony, some chanting, and a little bit of ritual to kind of get people familiar, and then took them through my curriculum, my material, and what I was presenting, and say, hey, like you can take any of this and it'll help you in some way, even if you just take a part. But if you look at it as a whole, who knows what you can do? Like I've through my experimentations, I've done a number of amazing things. So, one of them being completing a full body suit for myself, with my teacher who taught me how to tattoo or helped me along. And um, so, here's some things to consider. And so we go through and do some guided meditations that kind of go further into um, symbols and placement and energy and all these different aspects of getting the tattoo, and then going into the last bit of ritual with a temporary tattoo and allowing them to do, encouraging them and guiding them to do the nyasa, the placement in an immediate way of temporary tattoo.
Mm.
Just sort of, it's a way to play with it a little bit before you, with this idea of like, this is a practice.
Yeah, I get you. I mean,
So
I don't know if I'm getting this right or wrong when I'm hearing it, but is it like you're like I was saying before, the tattooing, I feel like is its own thing already, and it's already working with people and on people, and innately there's a whole bunch of things that they're recording and moving through, and ritual and rites of passage associated with it, without the yogic side as well. So if someone comes and wants to mark something intentionally with you, but maybe they don't resonate with the yogic stuff, are you still working with people in that way?
no.
Right. So it's just this is the one way you're doing it now.
Well, if the door is open to that stuff, then it'll come open whenever it does. If it doesn't, then that's fine too. Like, that's not the only it's not the only possibility. It just happens to be a way that I've seen things and formulated them. Now, there's a interesting thing I found further in study in the Sri Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. A tantra is also a treatise or an essay.
Yeah.
And so it says, at first one should pierce any limb of the body a little bit with a sharp pointed needle or other instrument. Then, projecting the consciousness there, verily there is movement towards the pure nature of Bhairava. Now they're talking about this Bhairava as a blissful state of consciousness. And they're asking you in that little in those two sentences to consider where is the pain that the needle is creating. Is this sensation that we're feeling like in our brain, or is it in our body, or is it somewhere in between? And so it's the in between areas that opens up, and there's something there for us to experience. So anyway,
so
that's
like that's talking about using the feeling and that physical trauma of a tattoo as a gateway into this blissful state. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Or just a state of awareness. It's another state.
Yeah.
It's an altered state, right?
Yeah. So yes, it's
and that's the core of the experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I find a lot of the time with people I'm tattooing, it's about them recording something and recognizing something, and it's a lot about sort of the information that's being written, and seeing it and integrating it. Maybe like your last step out of the 7, integrating a particular process that they've gone through, an experience that they've had. And it's not, everyone's different. There's so many different people, like different parts of the spectrum people are on when they're getting tattooed. And not everyone's at that point of like trying to attain an altered state either.
No, it's just a matter of course.
Yeah.
It just happens because that's part of the deal.
When you get tattooed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. Cool. Yeah, that was one of the things when you contacted me. I was really keen to see what you thought about, when you start to really label something and structure it, then there's sort of less room to move, to waver and become adaptable to different people and situations as well, and whether
Sure.
that's something that, yeah, it's like you have like a more particular clientele now because of it, or there's like people that you
No,
might turn away or
not
not
really.
turn away. No.
No, I mean, if I use the gauge of like if I'm speaking with someone about it, like consulting, and and if I'm getting mental imagery that's popping up, and I'm like, well, I'm listening to them, then I'm going to work with you. Um,
Yeah.
I don't turn that many people away, as far as well, occasionally there'll be something that I'm just like, well, there's actually somebody better. Like, I'm not doing realism. I
Mm.
don't do portraits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do a lot of lettering. So a lot of this stuff, I'll be like, well, I have some friends that be perfect. You guys will have a better outcome experience altogether. I'm sure you
Yeah.
should go see them.
Yeah.
But if I have mental imagery and I'm like tracking on where people are coming from with whatever it is, no man, I'm more than happy to
Work
do
with
the
them.
work, because everything is fluid. It's I'm not I'm not necessarily applying this in a day-to-day session. It's like
Okay. Yeah.
I sort of built this out to sort of like as a study and an experiment, and to see how this connects and how it lands with some folks.
Yeah.
Um, because it's one way, it's one particular lens of seeing it.
Yeah.
And I have several that I look through and that I relate to. And ultimately it's in my connection with spirit that is the guide.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And this is just
and
one of the forms it's taken on, and you've explored further than others. Yeah. Yeah.
correct,
That's
correct.
cool. Yeah.
So,
Um, yeah. And then what with, technically with your tattooing, you said like you've had a teacher that you've completed a full bodysuit with. That is a massive journey. I'm not there yet, but working away as well.
yeah,
So, yeah, technically,
20.
there's two sides of it. There's the technical aspect and the spiritual aspect. Where's the technical roots for you, and what type of tattooing do you like doing, you know,
Well,
aesthetically?
I kind of, well, I came up, my, I have a Japanese style bodysuit. It's kind of got several different types of Asian elements in it.
Nice.
Um, and I've got some other stuff that's like, sort of fitting in around that. That's a little more like American style, a couple of little pieces, but still kind of a little esoteric flavor, and some traditional Thai stuff and a few other things.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, but I enjoy, like, I kind of, because I learned from somebody who's really focused on Japanese style tattooing, my mentor, Colin Delgado, we still work together. We share a studio.
Yeah,
Um,
cool.
and he had similar feelings. We really related, and that's between he and I over our relationship for the last 20 something years, um, have really like discussed a lot of this type of material. Um, so through, it's through continued sessions of tattooing and experiences there that really like spurred me on to like seek some kind of methodology or some kind of
Yeah.
lineage where there was some practice, there was some like further delving into this like subtle realms,
Yeah, totally.
um, of what we might call spiritual or whatever. But really, it was always about that experience, that
Yeah, you
special time where you're getting that medicine, whatever it
you
is.
can't really comprehend it till you've, like, been through, hundreds of hours of tattooing, hey? It's such a lot of people don't see that, it's not a whimsical decision to get your entire body tattooed. It's a very, dedicated way of spending your time and your energy and receiving energy from someone, and taking time out to process things, and, you know, having to articulate that's quite difficult sometimes, right? You know, how do you secondhand put all of those hours of experience and trauma into words? Pretty hard. But I've been thinking a lot about that technical thing, man. Like, as a practitioner, how important it is to be, you know, highly skilled at tattooing, to be able to then add that extra layer of spiritual work with it, you know. Seen a couple of people say like they're doing this intentional tattoo thing and it's great, but I look and I'm like, technically they're not there yet, some of them, you know, and I'm just like, wow, I think it needs to be the underlying foundation, right?
Well, I see that too, you know, and I like a lot of different styles, but the ones I practice are really focused on use of the body as far as like I think the Japanese have always done it the best as far as
I agree.
using large scale, like tattoos. And so I learned from that. I learned a lot about traditional American coming up. And I also practice a lot of black work and Da work. But I like a mix of organic, organic forms and geometric work, because I think they just play off each other so well. I think so much about tattooing is contrast and balance. Rather than total asymmetry, just like so things balance each other.
Yeah, and the Japanese are good at that.
So
it's like that
so
Japanese
right?
vision of the body as one drawing, right? Like they just see that as one suit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. I've seen other people that are like, wow, you know, like they're going in this sort of intentional like direction, whether it's they're pulling tarot cards or doing some crystal stuff or whatever. I think it's all nice looking, and it feels nice too as far as how things go. But yeah, I've seen people that are just like technically not proficient. They don't know what they're doing yet with the way they're tattooing, and some of the drawings aren't good at all. And so it's kind of like, well, yeah, there's some kind of like imbalance there. Yeah, I feel like I wouldn't have even been interested in going and putting out any of this material. So I'm working on putting this into a book, but more of a body of artwork with a little bit of this material in it.
Yep.
Just because people may be interested.
Just to get it down. Hey, document it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I probably wouldn't have even got there if I hadn't had some good teachers and had some people that were like critically reviewing my work and saying like, well, this is good, but this, you know, this needs work. And,
that's
you know,
it.
you should look at that and
and
don't do it that way.
Tattooing should be the focus, I think, not anything else, you know. That's super important. You need to be doing a good tattoo and a beautiful tattoo, you know, and it's got to last the test of time. It's like, if we want this to sort of continue on intergenerationally and be a pathway and a tool and a rite of passage again, you know, the old dudes have to have some good looking tattoos that have lasted their entire life, right? And then be justified in wearing them and relaying that story to people. So yeah, that's cool. The other thing that I wanted to bring up with you, because it's like, I'm wondering a lot about this myself at the moment. You know, you talked that you've been doing a tour and some guest talks and workshops, and I've done a couple of talks in Australia this year, and I'm trying to work out the right way to structure my therapeutic experience as people are coming for, you know, but I'm always worried about that, like that marketing side, that gimmicky side of like, where's that line of, you know, being able to present people with this full, complete experience, you know, without it becoming something that's just like, you know, a parody of itself.
Yeah, some kind of consumerism thing.
Yeah,
it's really tough, man. I've fought with it my whole career because I was never interested in it, honestly.
Yeah,
And
totally.
but I don't I'm at the point where I'm coming back to a place where I visited like every few months, and I had enough clientele, but it's like now that I've been here for going on, moving into a second year, you know, I need more visibility. I need to like consider that aspect. And I
Yeah.
didn't have any, my teachers didn't have any of that information for me either. Like if I'd
It's
gone to
new.
art school,
Yeah.
maybe I would have learned some things about how to market yourself, but you know, I was never interested. I thought, the quality of my work should speak for itself, and that's how we all move along. But in a world where things have been really drastically changed with TV and marketing and everything else, I feel like I'm just trying to do it as authentically as I can. I've got a couple people advising
Hmm.
me that I can ask questions and so on, but they're not trying necessarily to steer it. I'm just trying to sort of feel out where this feels right and how this thing can move along, and I can continue to do this type of work
Yeah.
and make a living with where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really all of this stuff is a piece of my heart. It's like if I haven't lived, eat, bled, and like sweat this stuff for like my whole adult life, pretty much. And even before that, when I was still technically a teenager,
Yeah.
uh, I don't feel like I could speak like I do or be, and I
Standing
don't,
in it. That's
hope,
it.
hopefully I'm not off putting with some of this nomenclature or anything like that, but, um, and this is sort of
Hey, no,
how
man.
things have manifested.
Yeah. I'm just bringing up the things that I need to understand too. Like you said at the start, the most important thing is that we have these discussions so we can understand where each other are at and what we're doing, and people can hear it. That's why we're having this chat, is so they can hear it. And
For sure.
I think the way that you're going about it and the way I'm going about it, which is, like you said, just trying to be authentic and genuine, is the best thing we can do. And at the end of the day, right, neither of us are going to be able to appeal to and please everyone or be the right person or thing for everyone either. So we just got to like be putting ourselves out, wholly and clearly. And
Mhm.
then that's the opportunity that, someone might be taking up, right?
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
what it's about.
if I think if you were just focused on trying to please everybody, then none of us would have got tattooed in the first place, because we all know how people feel about tattoos sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
that's one of the most transformational parts, isn't it? That first
Yeah.
tattoo and like breaking through those perceptions. I love it. I love seeing people go through it. I loved watching my
Uh,
parents go through it.
uh,
So good.
that's amazing.
Yeah, tattooing like that.
I'll probably never tattoo my folks, but I've got a bunch of clients that are like in their 60s and 70s, even that, just they're super jazzed. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
right. Yeah, it's good. It's good seeing that. Cool, man. I'm coming to the end of my questions, but I've been
Cool.
finishing with this last question with most people, and that's, what's the number one lesson that tattooing's taught you? Tattooing as a teacher.
Humility,
Mm.
humility, not, not, um, not leading with the ego, hopefully, even though it's kind of like, for some image wise, it tends to be a very, focalizing thing for your image if you're wearing a tattoo or whatever. But really, it's tattooing is the most humbling practice I've probably ever experienced. Um, I have I've done a couple other things. I'm a goldsmith, jeweler, metalsmith. I was doing that before I was tattooing professionally.
Oh wow.
So I still work um, and do that kind of work when I have time and when projects come up. But tattooing is continually humbling, like, because really only as good as your last tattoo, right? Like,
Yeah,
and
totally, man.
there's always there's always something to learn and to kind of critique and to say, okay, well, I'd do that again, but not that. And I would do that differently this time. And then of course, when you're on the table receiving, it's like, sometimes it feels like it's scratching and it's totally like, blissful. And then other times it's excruciating. And
Yeah.
you don't know how you're going to get through that one moment. So
Yeah. You got to check in. Oh, your suit's
humility
done.
is what I would say.
Your suit's done. You don't have to worry anymore. That's good.
Well, that's a nice thing. Of course, there's little pieces here and there I might like, but there's no
Yeah.
rush.
Yeah.
No
Oh,
rush.
that's good. Yeah. I remember someone saying to me once, like, as soon as someone tells you you're good or you've done a good tattoo and you believe them, you have lost.
It goes away after that.
Yeah. No, cool.
That's like some of these esoteric practices. It's like there's a rule against trying to figure out how it works, because as soon as you start investigating how it works, the ability sort of like leaves you. And so that's
It loops back to the
yeah.
belief thing you were talking about, right? Belief.
Mhm.
Super
Trust.
important.
So that kind of underlines just like trusting the process. This process has been done for generations upon generations. And so there's some way we give ourselves over to that process
Yeah.
because it works.
Yeah. Cool, man. Thanks so much for sharing that with us. Do you want to just go over where people can find your work and read more about what you do and, your social media for the people
Oh,
listening?
sure.
Yeah.
Do a little plug.
Yeah. Yeah. Just so people can find it. Like I'll link it into the text, but
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I'm tattooing in Seattle, Washington, United States. Right now I have a private studio. You can find my information on tattoovinyasa.com, which is hosted by thesacredserpent.com, which is my merchandise brand that I do metalwork, I do clothing stuff, design.
yeah, I saw the socks. I liked those socks, man. They're
Yeah,
cool.
right. I love
Good move.
socks.
They're great. Yeah.
Thanks. So, and on Instagram, you can find me, Jon 108 Osiris, tattoo Vinyasa or tattoo_Vinyasa, and the Sacred Serpent has its own thing as well. So,
All right.
those are my plugs there, and you can read. I've got more information all over the website. Investigate.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm still reading through some of it. I opened up a couple more last night and had to read. Super good. Nice,
Thanks,
man.
Mike.
Keep
I
doing
appreciate
the
it.
good work. Cool.
Yeah, well, I've enjoyed chatting with you,
You too,
and
man.
and enjoyed seeing what you're doing over there. I'd love to hear more about that as well in the future. Perhaps we can. I've got a couple Aussie friends that maybe like to visit one day. So
Yeah, cool.
When I get back over there, I'll definitely look you up.
Yeah, nice, man. I've been thinking about getting over to the States again soon, so we'll make that work.
All right.
Cool, man. All right.